Actor Jan Michael Vincent, famous for his role as courageous pilot Stringfellow Hawk in the three-season Airwolf television series, has passed away at the age of 74, although he had passed away earlier. It wasn't until a month later that people saw his obituary during the entire hospital. Stay in the last days of his life in a North Carolina hospital. He received the loving care of Patricia Ann Christ at that time. Many people were curious about the reason his wife hid her husband's departure. Do you think there is any secret or wish of the deceased behind it? I think so, and after many years, we have heard his wife's frank sharing of truths that have never been published in the media. Tragedy seemed ingrained in Vincent's lineage. With his birth in July 1944 in Denver, Colorado, to Lloyd Whiteley Vincent and Doris Jane. Despite his father's honorable service as a pilot in World War II, the family's history was far from conventional. Jan Michael's paternal lineage had a dark and tumultuous past, marked by his grandfather and uncles orchestrating numerous bank heists in the 1920s and 1930s, leading to fatal confrontations with law enforcement. Jan Michael's rebellion against his father's disciplined life began early growing up. He harbored resentment for the stringent control exerted by the U.S. Army over his father, contrary to his father's path. His grandfather, a radical free spirit, became the ideal figure he aspired to emulate. In an interview with People magazine, Jan Michael disclosed his deviation from his father's plan after graduating high school in 1963. He abandoned the family sign shop proposition, stating, "I put my surfboard in the car and left." Post his departure, Jan Michael enrolled at Ventura College but found it uninspiring. Recalling the experience, he mentioned, "I would have completed college, but the registration clerk shut the window in my face for the lunch hour." Armed with $200 in tuition fees, he embarked on a wild Mexican escapade, marking the inception of his reckless journey. Lacking a formal education, Jan Michael found himself inadvertently mirroring a path he sought to avoid tracing his father's footsteps. Following his escapades in Mexico, Jan Michael enlisted in the California Army National Guard, akin to his father's earlier service in the U.S. Army. While patriotic duty bound him, parallels with his father extended beyond mere military allegiance. During the zenith of his stardom in the 1980s, Jan Michael undeniably claimed the title of Hollywood's most captivating luminary, a celestial figure perhaps even in the cosmic expanse. While he didn't inherit his father's penchant for discipline, he was bestowed with an even more extraordinary legacy: his rugged, jaw-dropping, eye-popping, and tongue-wagging good looks. Amid the sun-soaked California beaches of the 1960s populated by surfing sculpted physiques, Jan Michael's allure transcended the elite class of aesthetically pleasing individuals. Striding shirtless along the shore, he captured the attention of a discerning Hollywood talent who recognized that his visual charisma could liquefy camera lenses. In 1968, Jan Michael burst onto the scene. His unbelievably handsome appearance not only helped him surpass audition rounds, but also outshine diligent and hopeful contenders. Despite having no acting experience, he secured roles in acclaimed series such as Dragnet 1967 and Bonanza. However, the unexpected success in Hollywood wasn't the sole significant change for him that year. Blessed with conspicuous good looks, well-defined washboard abs, and a burgeoning career in film and television, Jan Michael possessed the allure to attract any woman of his choosing with discerning taste. He selected the woman of his dreams in 1968. He entered marital bliss with Bonnie Poorman, marking the commencement of their tumultuous romance. The union bore fruit with the birth of their daughter, Amber. In 1973, however, their family was far from a picture of happiness. Soon, every Hollywood producer coveted Jan Michael for their movies and shows, yet he wasn't content with merely cashing in the checks. Jan Michael declined more financially rewarding offers, opting instead for roles in films he deemed worthy, like 1974's Buster and Billy. He asserted an appreciation for the strong story and characters, although it's conceivable he also relished showcasing his talents. Primarily, critics and audiences found pleasure in Jan Michael's portrayal in 1974's Buster and Billy. However, if their reviews lacked enthusiasm for the cinematography, it might be attributed to a distraction. In a scene that left everyone astonished and perhaps a bit titillated, Jan Michael made a daring appearance, completely devoid of clothing, revealing his chiseled, tanned, and rugged glory. For evident reasons, namely his sheer gorgeousness, Jan Michael harbored no reservations about bearing it all on the screen. Elaborating in a 1975 interview with Dorothy Manners, he asserted, "The scene was in good taste, and I don't think I sprang any surprises on anyone." With a mischievous grin, he playfully added, "Just standard equipment." Displaying his intimate anatomy wasn't the sole feat in Jan Michael's repertoire. A daredevil both on-screen and off, he regularly engaged in his death-defying stunts, be it in water or on land. Naturally, he anticipated that his paychecks would be commensurate with his audacity, and indeed they did. By the mid-1970s, Jan Michael's exceptionally handsome visage permeated various media, and he capitalized on his Adonis-like appearance. A prime example was his million-dollar paycheck for the role in 1977's Damnation Alley. Despite external appearances of a charmed life, lurking darkness within Jan Michael would eventually unravel his career and dismantle his family. In the eyes of his adoring, enamored fans, Jan Michael seemed to possess everything, complete with a seemingly affectionate family. Even his daughter, Amber, graced the silver screen in 1978's Big Wednesday, sharing an on-screen moment with her father. However, beneath Jan Michael's exterior allure lurked a beast that would dismantle his career and exact a toll on his family. Jan Michael's ostensibly serene family life was far from flawless. The intimacy he projected to his daughter on-screen in Big Wednesday was as artificial as a spray tan. According to diverse sources, Jan Michael remained estranged from his daughter for a significant part of her life. In fact, there's uncertainty about whether they ever managed to reconcile. It appears Jan Michael had other passions that took precedence. By 1980, discerning Hollywood insiders recognized that Jan Michael's fame had ensnared him in its pitfalls. Gradually, revelations surfaced from his film and television ventures, unveiling a destructive entanglement with alcohol and other intoxicants. Unlike his appealing visage, narratives surrounding his behavior were far from alluring. The descent into addiction that fueled Jan Michael's downfall possibly commenced with the 1980s The Return, where he nearly derailed the production. To the chagrin of the film's director, Graydon Clark, Jan Michael was a no-show on set. In a frantic effort to salvage the day, Graydon had to rouse Jan Michael's co-stars, Sybil Shepherd and Martin Landau, from their beds. Regrettably, this wouldn't be the last instance of Jan Michael causing distress to his fellow castmates. Despite his tumultuous personal struggles, Jan Michael's undeniable allure kept him in demand, especially for roles that showcased his physique. Securing the lead role in the spy/action series Airwolf, he embodied Stringfellow Hawk, the high-flying pilot. Ironically, this character resonating with his father's strict army demeanor became his most iconic role. When the series premiered, he was making $200,000 per episode, earning him the title of the highest-paid TV actor of that era. Sadly, he was in for a crash landing. By the third season of Airwolf, Jan Michael's vices had eroded his professional reliability. His deteriorating condition on set is marked by forgetfulness and inability to recall lines. Jan Michael's dependence on alcohol and other substances began to incur costs surpassing his value to the producers of Airwolf. After merely 3 seasons, they reached a breaking point. They decided to terminate the Hollywood heartthrob from his show and opted for an entirely new cast. Surprisingly, Jan Michael may not have been the predominant issue on the set. Jan Michael's penchant for performing his stunts took a tragic turn when his stunt double crashed a helicopter during an episode's filming. The resulting inferno claimed the stunt double's life, adding another layer of tragedy to the ill-fated production. Even following the derailment of Airwolf due to Jan Michael's addiction issues, the project remained plagued by misfortune. One of the helicopters featured in the show ended up in the possession of German ambulance pilots. In a heartrending and cruel twist of fate, the helicopter crashed, resulting in the tragic loss of all 3 individuals on board. It appeared that Jan Michael was under a curse, and the situation was destined to worsen. In 1986, Jan Michael faced further losses, both professionally and personally. His marriage to Bonnie Poorman, his partner since the late 1960s, crumbled as his career slipped from his grasp. Based on what happened next, she made the right call. Jan Michael skillfully shielded the precise details of his initial marriage from the tabloids, but it can be inferred that it was a tumultuous relationship. Acquaintances depicted Jan Michael as a menace whenever his addiction took control. Post his divorce from Poorman, he found himself embroiled in several brutal bar fights. Thankfully, his attractive visage remained unscathed for the time being. Despite the bottle, Basuco, and bar brawls, Jan Michael retained the one thing that held utmost importance for him and everyone else: his good looks and sculpted physique. Undeterred by his turmoil, Jan Michael swiftly entered another marriage, this time with Joanne Robinson. However, this union, unsurprisingly, proved to be fraught with challenges. As Jan Michael continued his descent, the specter of a grim fate loomed. In 1989's hit list, his recklessness during a stunt, fueled by substance abuse, nearly turned fatal. As per the film's director, William Lustig, Jan Michael's hazardous habit of drinking and consuming other substances while on set nearly transformed the actor into a casualty on the roadway. Lustig recounted the narrative of Jan Michael's near-fatal intoxicated stunt. In a scene where the handsome hunk and his co-star, Leo Rossi, flee from a vehicle on the sidewalk, Jan Michael slipped and fell. Fortunately, the stunt driver of the speeding car skillfully halted the vehicle before it could potentially collide with Jan Michael. Working alongside Jan Michael in such compromised states became perilous for co-stars, as evidenced by Ray Parker Jr.'s description of the actor as crazy during their collaboration in Enemy Territory in 1987. The dangers were anything but mild. As Jan Michael's professional world crumbled, his deepening addiction intensified, accompanied by a proclivity for volatile outbursts. This proclivity manifested in a physical altercation with Ray Parker Jr., who disclosed to the media that Jan Michael had assaulted him with a wheelchair during the filming of Enemy Territory. Despite his escalating addiction, Jan Michael's on-screen charisma remained magnetic. Yet not every director deemed him worth the complications, with some resorting to extreme measures to mitigate his condition. In Hit List, director Lustig strategically shot most of Jan Michael's scenes solo, anticipating a potential replacement. Lustig wasn't alone in navigating Jan Michael's destructive addiction. Harry Bromley Davenport, directing the 1991 film Extra 2, The Second Encounter, characterized the former heartthrob as extremely difficult to work with, requiring line feeding for every scene, a stark testament to his precipitous decline. During the pinnacle of his fame, Jan Michael exemplified true professionalism. According to his Airwolf co-star, Ernest Borgnine, Jan Michael possessed not only beauty and brawn, but a matching intellect. Borgnine asserted that the Hollywood hunk boasted a genuinely photographic memory, requiring only a single glance at the script before filming. Unfortunately, his addiction robbed him of this memory prowess, and eventually, it would also strip away his beauty. Tolerance for Jan Michael's destructive tendencies persisted due to his enduring physical appeal, however. In 1996, a car crash altered the narrative. Driving with his housekeeper, Jan Michael sustained severe injuries, including a broken neck and facial trauma compounding the situation. Paramedics had to execute an emergency medical procedure on site to open Jan Michael's airways and ensure his survival. The repercussions were devastating. Emergency procedures to preserve his life damaged his vocal cords, leaving him with a permanently raspy voice. While filming Red Line during his recovery, Jan Michael embraced his altered appearance, incorporating his disfigured face into the film without relying on makeup. The movie served as a cathartic process for him to grapple with the trauma, notably featuring scenes with his genuinely swollen and scarred face, adorned with his real hospital ID bracelet. Jan Michael utilized the filming of Red Line as a means to navigate the trauma of losing his attractive features. Upon his character's initial appearance in the film, he gestures to his authentically disfigured face, expressing fatigue at resembling Frankenstein. One might assert that he genuinely invested his heart and soul into the film. A post-accident appearance on the Howard Stern radio show, with stitches and scabs still evident, saw Jan Michael declaring Red Line as his best performance. However, Stern's audience disagreed, later voting him most incoherent guest of the year. Devoid of his renowned good looks, Jan Michael's career wasn't the sole aspect spiraling downward. His marital life followed suit. In 1998, his second wife, Joanne Robinson, initiated divorce proceedings. However, she wasn't merely abandoning him in his time of misfortune, and as he no longer held the title of the most attractive man alive. She had a compelling reason to part ways. The prior accounts of Jan Michael being a menace when under the influence were gross understatements. In her divorce filings, Robinson portrayed Jan Michael as a monstrous figure, alleging multiple attacks and even threats to end her life. Astonishingly, these shocking allegations were not the worst among her claims. In her divorce filings, Robinson extended her claims, asserting that Jan Michael's pattern of aggression and mistreatment had persisted for decades. She alleged enduring black eyes and broken bones throughout their marriage, describing instances where he compelled her into bed with him and groups of his friends. Before long, the sordid details of his depraved life became headline fodder. The court sided with Robinson, issuing a restraining order against Jan Michael and compelling him to stay 300 yards away from their Malibu home. However, the grim revelations didn't end there. Jan Michael faced accusations from more than just his ex-wife. In 1986, authorities charged him in an incident at his home. Fortunately, he escaped a prison sentence as his lawyer argued that the woman had tripped and fallen on a telephone cord. However, his rap sheet continued to lengthen. In 2010, the disturbing details of Jan Michael's romantic life once again grabbed headlines. A judge issued a default ruling, ordering him to pay $374,000 to an ex-girlfriend. The alleged incident involved an attack while she was pregnant, resulting in a miscarriage. Back in the year 2010, Jan Michael Vincent's once dazzling star was losing its shine. The toll of his hard-living lifestyle was impossible to ignore. Without the looks that once captivated audiences and a body that turned heads, his acting opportunities dried up like a desert in summer. Even when he made an appearance in Escape to Grizzly Mountain, it was a mere blip. By then, the animals sharing the screen with him received more attention than the faded actor. With his career on life support and his personal life in tatters, Jan Michael sought refuge away from the relentless Hollywood spotlight. Against all odds, he found a new chapter with his third wife, Patricia Christ, and together they settled in the serenity of Mississippi. When a persistent reporter finally tracked him down years later, his response was simple: "I'm just laying low." Little did he know, fate had more twists in store. The consequences of Jan Michael's decades-long battle with addiction were severe. In a raw and haunting confession to the National Enquirer in 2014, he laid bare his grim fate. In 2012, an infection, stemming from peripheral artery disease, forced him into a heartbreaking decision: the amputation of his right leg. Once a tall, bronze beauty that graced the screens, he spent the latter years of his life with a prosthetic limb and confined to a wheelchair. Jan Michael Vincent's journey from a bulky beauty to a broken-down beast stands as a stark, cautionary tale about the perils of addiction and the ephemeral nature of instant fame. As his downward spiral concluded in February of 2019, it passed almost unnoticed. It took an entire month for 30 Mile Zone to break the news that the Airwolf star had finally found rest. In the last days of his life with his beloved wife, he must have felt very reassured. His death was revealed to be due to sudden cardiac arrest after being hospitalized at Mission Hospital Memorial Campus. However, 1 month later, his wife's information about her husband's death was publicly announced with a shredded copy of the death certificate. Those by his side in his final moments were his third wife, Patricia Ann Christ, and his daughter from his first marriage, Amber Vincent. In the glamorous world of Hollywood, where fame can be as fleeting as the blink of an eye, Vincent's turbulent life serves as a poignant reminder that even the brightest stars can face the darkest nights. The tale of Jan Michael Vincent is not just a story of a Hollywood heartthrob. It's a reflection on the highs, lows, and inevitable pitfalls that come with a life lived in the limelight. What do you think about the life of Jan Michael Vincent? Let us know your opinions. Thank you for watching the entire video. See you in the next interesting videos.